This video is for all of you Power Automate aficionados and fans. This is some late breaking news. So as you can see, I first spotted this on LinkedIn. This is a brand new tool that rolled out from the PowerCat team yesterday, October 8th, and it is chock full of phenomenal information. So what we're gonna do is take a look at this. What are we talking about? We are talking about Power Automate Cloud Flows best practices. Every organization probably does or should have a list of your own internal best practices. But the PowerCat team took it a step further and made this phenomenal document about Power Automate and what you can start to implement for some nice governance and along with like COE methodologies that you already have running alongside everything in your implementation. So take a look at what Microsoft is saying are the best practices. Now, a note, this is just for cloud flows and Power Automate. So if you're using the desktop flows, this would not cover those. So if you're using Power Automate cloud flows, let's dive in and take a look at what's here. So there's some really good things, actually things we've been talking about for a long time, right? You should have some best practices around your cloud flows that everyone in your organization follows to ensure that you're building the best flows and the best flows that help prevent potential throttles, hiccups, or points of failure that others have experienced. Now, with 80 pages worth of content, I'm certainly not going to go through all of these. You can and should check this out and see what makes sense to implement today in your organization going forward if you don't have it already. But I do want to point out a couple things that I think are interesting. First up, child flows. Instead of having very complicated business logic that lives all within one flow, you should absolutely be utilizing child flows. Have small, repeatable, reusable pieces of flows that you can call within a larger flow. So that is something that I think is very cool that you should be using if you're not today. Another good tip is avoid nested for each loop. So just because you can, should you do things? So you can call nested for each loop, so you can see an example here, but that's going to have some throttling limits. So I love that not only is this telling you avoid that when you can, but it's also giving you some additional alternatives that you can consider. So cool thing number 2 in here. The next one is something that I use a lot, and it's a pro tip. It says add a note. So I've developed a Power Automate starter kit along with some of the classes that I teach. So for example, at Summit next week, which hopefully you will see or have seen depending on when this video gets published, I'm giving away some zip files with a bunch of flows, and I've used the notes function within the flow to kind of document what this is and give the users a little bit of information of what is going on in this flow and why it was built the way that you have. So it's simply, you click the ellipses, you click add note, and then this is what it looks like. It's just some nice documentation to help your flow makers understand what a flow is going to do. So I use this, I love this, and I think you should use it too. And the last thing that I think I'm going to call out is understanding Power Platform limits / avoiding throttling section. And that's about concurrency. So we've talked about concurrency a bit in things like 60 tips in 60 minutes. And I've seen this in some recent presentations talking about how you can set concurrency and kind of control a little bit more about how often these things are going. So this is bringing together all of the Microsoft Learn documentation and just putting it all here. So these are your limits for concurrency, so you can be aware of what they are and ensure that you're using it the right way. So there's so much in here, and I just picked a few that I think are awesome, but these are all really good tips. I am truly thankful for Reza and the rest of the PowerCat team for putting this great resource together. And if you don't have any governance around Power Automate, this is a really great place to start. So thank you to the PowerCat team for putting this out, and let me know what you think is a great tip in here.